it's the time of Shuvavim. The time of Shuvavim is, as we mentioned on Sunday when we learned together, is the time where we read the book of Exodus, Sefer Shmot, and the word Shuvavim is an acronym for all of the parashot, all of the Torah portions that are in the book of Shmot, and also based on the verse Shuvu Shuvavim, return, wayward or wayward children, back to your God, for each one of us to do tshuva. And Chachamim have stated it time and time again throughout all of the generations that this time is a auspicious time to do tikkun abrit, to not only do tshuva in general, keep Shabbat, keep kashrut, tarat mishpacha, putting on tefillin every day, praying on time, and so on. But the most critical thing that a person should focus on during this time, assuming they have the basics already that I just mentioned, is to do tikkun abrit. To do tikkun abrit is not an easy thing. Perhaps we should take the words of the Rambam that he writes in his Mishneh Torah, that the most difficult addiction that a human being can have is his issue when it comes to wasting seed, when he is addicted to immorality, whether it's by himself or with somebody else. And Rabbi Nachman of Breslev elaborates further, telling us that what we've seen throughout the Tanakh is a clarity of what it is in the world, meaning that when a person is not careful with his character traits, is projecting arrogance, thinks he knows everything, thinks he has everything, or he or she, this leads to immorality. In the beginning, it starts with the person's self, where they do things to themselves, whether it's with the hands or with the legs, as the Ten Commandments tell us. The Ten Commandments tell us that when a person is, one of the commandments that talks about lotin off, to not be a noef, it's not referring to being an adulterer, but rather it's talking about the issues of immorality, wasting seed, as the Gemara tells us. And the Gemara says that this is specifically talking about whether he's doing it with his hand or he's doing it with his legs to warm his body up, and in order to waste seed. This is a violation of one of the Ten Commandments. A violation of one of the Ten Commandments. Now the problem is that when a person is young and is exploring himself, doesn't know who, what, when, and how, did not get the right education about how he should deal with his brit, because we know from Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov that when they made a deal, when they made an important agreement with someone, such as the one that Avraham made with Eliezer when he sent him off to go find a kala for Yitzchak, or when Yaakov made an agreement with Yosef, his son, to make sure that he buries him in Me'arat Machpelah, the cave of Machpelah. They says that he had them put their hand under his yerech, under his brit. And although to us in our generation, what we call the 2021 generation or so, in reality 5781, but point being is we think that we know everything, but so we think that is odd in our eyes. It's only odd in our eyes because of all of our sins. If we were as pure, or even a quarter as pure, as our patriarchs, we would know that they viewed their brit, they viewed their member as something that was holy, something that was kadosh. They didn't view it as something like we do. They looked at their brit and their finger the same way. And that's why they wanted to make sure that someone that they're making a covenant with, whether it's Eliezer or it's Yosef or otherwise, they're making a covenant and making sure that they're showing and dealing with the most holy aspect of their life, the brit of the person. Unfortunately, today there's so much confusion in the world that your standard education about how to treat your brit is no longer taught in in an average Jewish home, needless to say in a secular home or a non-Jewish home. And your average child discovers his brit on his own. And what ends up happening is that this child discovers it on his own and explores it to the point where it becomes an addiction. An addiction that the Rambam writes is the most difficult addiction to overcome. Because it's a physical addiction, it's a mental addiction, it's a spiritual addiction. More than anything else. And the reason why it's a spiritual addiction is because, as the Torah tells us many, many times throughout the Gemara, that each time, Gemara Masechet Nida, page 13, and other places, talk about each time that a person wastes seed, they're taking all of these neshamot, all of these souls that were supposed to come into the world, and they are wasting them, and they're giving them as hostages to the Satan himself. Zohar Kadosh has Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai come and tell us something scary. Something scary. He says, why is it that a murderer is less bad than someone that wastes seed, someone that's immoral, even with themselves, or perhaps with others, but nonetheless, even with themselves, which in our view, in our perspective, seems less bad. In reality, if a Jew is with a non-Jew, or is with a woman that's forbidden to him, and he ends up wasting seed, it's worse. And the reason why is because it's multiple sins on top of the wasting seed. If he has a girlfriend, that's Jewish or non-Jewish, and in essence, if she's Jewish, she's Nida. If she's not Jewish, then she's obviously forbidden to him. Either way, each time he's with her, and he's using what they call protection, but in reality, this protection is a disaster. Coming from the most famous protection is named after one of the Greek gods, Trojan, which was the god of sex. So already showing us that this is all connected. The Gemara mentions it, and it's all connected. It's not a coincidence that the Trojan manufacturers or company is coming from the Greek gods of false gods of sexuality, of immorality, because the Greeks wanted to destroy Am Yisrael. They didn't want to kill Am Yisrael, they wanted to destroy them, meaning they didn't want to kill their bodies, but they rather wanted to kill their souls. How? By making them sexually immoral, just like they were. And that's actually part of the things that they would do in these coliseums, which they call, today we call sports. They would have all types of naked men with men and all types of other things, do awful and disgusting things. And the point being is that when a Jew is immoral with himself or with somebody else, or even when a non-Jew is immoral with himself or with somebody else, they're taking souls that were supposed to come to this world. One of those souls was supposed to come to this world, but each one of them was, in essence, a soul that was supposed to come to this world, and they are wasting it. And Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says in the Zohar Kadosh, this is worse than murder. This is worse than murder. The Rambam says he's like a murderer. Rabbi Shimon in the Zohar says he's worse than a murderer. Why is he worse than a murderer? Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says it's because a murderer is someone that's killing another person. Perhaps he hurt him, perhaps he wants something from him. But a person that wastes seed is much worse, because it's like someone is fighting for himself to get something. That's the murderer, right? Somebody upset him, somebody has something that he wants, he ended up murdering him. But the other person, no. What does he do? He brings kids to the world, and then he gives all of their kids to his enemy. He gives all of his kids as hostages to his enemy. There's nothing worse than that. And that's in essence wasting seed, Rabotai Karim. Each time a person wastes seed, they're taking all of their all of their potential children, all of these souls, these righteous souls that were supposed to come to the world, and they're giving them off to the enemy. Who's the enemy? The Satan himself. And that's why, Rabotai Karim, each time a person wastes seed, they are delaying the Mashiach, because the Gemara specifically says that the Mashiach is not going to come until all of the souls come from the guf. What's the guf? The guf is a heavenly body that holds all of the souls. So each time a person wastes seed, that soul has to go through a horrific experience before it ever gets, if it ever gets, another chance to come back to this world. But if that's not enough, the Zohar elaborates, and the Reshit Chochmah goes further as well, saying that those souls now become the enemy of their father. Why? Because now they're going to have a case against him. They're going to have a case against him saying, how come you didn't give me a body? So as soon as that person dies, whenever that time comes, all of those souls come and tear him apart, come and destroy him, and taking revenge against him. This is also the reason why until this day in Yerushalayim, there's a custom that Am Yisrael has where the children are not allowed to go into the cemetery to bury their father. Why? Because lest he wasted seed, if he wasted seed in his life, those enemies, which are his children, are going to be jealous of his children in this world that have a body and could potentially kill them. So until this day, the children are not allowed to bury their father in a cemetery in Jerusalem. In other places in the country, obviously, it's a less religious, and therefore they don't have necessarily that same custom, but for different reasons perhaps also. The point being, Rabotai, is that this is all part of the standards of Judaism. It's not a mystical teaching that's far away from us. It's not Bashamayim, it's not in heaven, it's not over the mountain, it's not across the ocean. This is the very basics of Judaism, and anyone that tells you otherwise or does not educate you at all about this particular topic during a time like this, during Shovavim, is simply a person that's trying to customize the Torah to you. You do not want a teacher that customizes the Torah to you. Why? Because if he's going to customize the Torah to you, that means he's not going to give you the whole Torah. If he's not going to give you the whole Torah, you're not going to get the whole Gan Eden. You're probably going to get a whole Gehenom instead. Because we need to know the whole Torah in order to get the Gan Eden, in order to get to heaven.